Okay, picture this. It's the year 2000. You're getting ready for the weekend, and you know exactly what that means, right? You're heading down to the local video store, wandering those brightly lit aisles for an hour, just crossing your fingers that the new release you're dying to see is actually in stock. Back then, one massive company completely dominated this weekend ritual for all of us. And get this, they had the chance to absolutely own the future of entertainment. All they had to do was say yes to a scrappy little startup. But instead of shaking hands, they laughed. So welcome to this explainer. Today we're diving deep into one of the greatest corporate blunders in history. We're going to look directly at the strategy, the missteps, and the ultimate spectacular collapse of a total giant.
$50 million. That's the number. That is exactly what it would have cost for that giant to acquire the very startup that would, you guessed it, eventually destroy them. $50 million. I mean, in the grand scheme of major corporate acquisitions, that is a total drop in the bucket. But passing on this deal, well, it wasn't just a missed financial opportunity. It was a fatal mistake that completely rewired how the entire world consumes entertainment today.
Okay, let's dive into this. Part 1, Meet the Giant. It's the ultimate David versus Goliath story.
The scale of the mismatch here in the year 2000 it's truly staggering to think about now. On one side, you've got Blockbuster. We're talking about a retail empire with 9,000 stores globally and literally billions in revenue. They had prime real estate on seemingly every single corner. They were an unstoppable cultural force. And on the flip side, you've got Netflix, a tiny, struggling startup trying to convince people to wait days for a DVD to arrive in the mail in a little red envelope. They were bleeding money, they were desperate for a lifeline, and honestly, in the eyes of the market, they were barely even a blip on the radar.
Which brings us to Part 2. The fatal mistake. The climax of our story actually happened surprisingly early, right in the year 2000.
So the founders of that tiny startup travel all the way down to Dallas, Texas to meet with Blockbuster executives. But why on earth did Blockbuster flat out reject this acquisition offer? I mean, the Netflix founders were essentially handing them the keys to the digital future on a silver platter, all for a mere $50 million. But Blockbuster didn't just say no, they literally laughed the Netflix team out of the room. I know, it seems absolutely insane to us now, right? No way you turn that down. But to actually understand this colossal failure of foresight, we've got to look at how Blockbuster viewed the world at that exact moment.
See, the market conditions at the time heavily favored physical retail. And more importantly, late fees. Actually, get this, late fees accounted for hundreds of millions of dollars in pure profit for Blockbuster. Hundreds of millions. It was their main revenue engine. So why pivot when they felt completely secure making massive margins off customers like us who just forgot to rewind or return our tapes on time? They looked at this digital-minded, mail-order startup and saw absolutely zero threat to their massive physical empire. They genuinely thought the status quo would last forever.
All right, moving on to Part 3, the Netflix strategy. Let's look at how they survived this brutal rejection by completely changing the rules of the game. Instead of just packing it up and folding, Netflix went right back to the drawing board and flipped the industry on its head, with 4 distinct strategic moves. First up, the subscription model. Instead of paying per rental, you just paid a flat monthly fee. This gave Netflix totally predictable revenue and completely rewired consumer behavior. Second, and honestly, this was the absolute killer blow, no late fees. They looked at what customers hated most about the Blockbuster experience and just completely eliminated it. Poof, gone. Third, they made massive technology investments. While Blockbuster was busy investing in, more retail shelves, Netflix was building these incredibly sophisticated recommendation algorithms behind the scenes. And finally, number 4, an obsessive focus on the customer experience. By prioritizing this agile customer-first model, Netflix slowly but surely began to siphon away the very foundation of that giant we were just talking about.
And this brilliantly illustrates Part 4, the streaming revolution. This is where the rapid technological shift really caught the giant totally off guard.
Think about the blistering speed of how this all played out. Back in 2000, Blockbuster rejects that $50 million offer right at the absolute peak of their power. Fast forward just a few short years, and Netflix takes the foundation they built to launch streaming, fundamentally shifting the whole concept of entertainment from physical discs to instant digital access. Blockbuster? Well, they attempt a completely failed, super sluggish response. They tried to launch their own mail and digital services, but it was just way, way too late. And by 2010, literally just a single decade after laughing Netflix out of that boardroom, Blockbuster files for bankruptcy. In just 10 years, we go from absolute market dominance to total collapse. It's wild.
So what does this all mean for us? Let's bring it into focus with Part 5, Lessons in Adaptation. Time to look at the core business takeaways from this corporate autopsy.
The crucial takeaway really boils down to these 4 pillars. First up, innovation. It is absolutely relentless. You either lead it or it runs you over, there's no in-between. Second, arrogance. It's a massive business killer. Blockbuster's hubris, their absolute unwavering certainty that their current model was invincible, it completely blinded them to the future. Third is timing. Timing is everything. Netflix didn't actually invent streaming on day one, but they built a flexible, agile business model that allowed them to strike the exact moment internet speeds finally caught up. And finally, adaptation. Your willingness to cannibalize your own legacy business just to survive in a changing landscape, that is the ultimate test of leadership. Hubris destroyed a giant, while perfect timing and relentless adaptation crowned a completely new king.
As we wrap up this explainer, I really want to leave you with this one thought. The next Netflix is probably being ignored today. Really think about that for a second. Right now, maybe in your industry, maybe in your own sphere of work, there's likely a tiny, seemingly insignificant idea or startup that's just being laughed at by the established giants. History literally proves over and over that the most massive disruptions always start out looking like a total joke to the people sitting at the very top. So the big question you really have to ask yourself is this: are you laughing or are you paying attention?